Lucas Reed stepped out of the black SUV and into the hushed elegance of the Manhattan skyline. Midnight had long blanketed the city, and the hotel lobby whispered, with the quiet rustle of silk suits and polished shoes. He barely acknowledged the doorman's greeting. His body ached from hours of negotiations and media appearances. All he wanted was silence, solitude, and a few hours of uninterrupted sleep. His penthouse suite waited on the 43rd floor, a corner haven of glass and steel overlooking the Hudson River. The assistant had booked it in advance. Lucas rarely stayed in hotels, preferring the sterile comfort of his own penthouse uptown. But tonight's gala had run late. It was easier to crash downtown. He slid his keycard in without a second thought and stepped into the dimly lit room. At first, everything seemed normal. The scent of fresh linen, the soft whir of the central air. Then his gaze caught on something in the periphery. A figure, lying motionless in the king-sized bed. A woman. Lucas froze, his eyes adjusted to the soft amber light. The sheets were pulled low, too low. The woman was naked. Her back faced him, her long hair spilling across the pillow like ink. Her shoulders rose and fell with quiet, even breaths. She didn't flinch, didn't scream, she didn't even turn around. For a moment he said nothing, did nothing. A slow breath escaped him as he stepped forward, his shoes silent against the plush carpet. She wasn't asleep. He could tell by the way her body tensed slightly, as if bracing for impact. "Who the hell are you?" He didn't speak the words. Instead, he walked around the side of the bed, stopping short when he saw her face in profile. Young, vulnerable. But there was something else. She didn't look like a call girl. No heavy makeup. No forced seduction. There was only stillness in her expression. And fear. The kind that settles in deep, silent layers. He could smell her shampoo. Vanilla and something floral. Her hands were clenched under the pillow. She still didn't look at him. "What is this?" Finally she spoke. Her voice was barely audible. "I'm sorry, I didn't choose this." Lucas stepped back slightly, the tension coiling in his gut. This was not some misunderstanding. This was something else, something darker. "Who sent you?" No answer. He ran a hand through his hair, anger beginning to surface. Was this a trap, blackmail, a setup? But she looked so small, so uncertain. And then he saw it, a necklace. It lay against the pale curve of her collarbone. Silver chain, 2 small pendants, a sun and a moon. The breath caught in his throat. That necklace. He had not seen its twin in a decade. The last time he had it had been clutched in the hands of a 15-year-old girl with wide brown eyes and a smile that could split open the sky. Leah. He stared at the pendant for several seconds. He told himself it was a coincidence. Anyone could wear that design. It meant nothing, but a whisper stirred inside his chest, a whisper he hadn't heard in 10 years. Slowly she turned her head toward him. Their eyes met for the first time. She gasped. He did not. He stepped back like he had seen a ghost. And perhaps he had, because in that moment, Lucas Reed realized this wasn't just a stranger in his bed. It was her. He didn't know how, but he knew it in his bones. And she had no idea that the man standing before her was the boy who had once promised to marry her beneath a summer sky. Lucas Reed had spent the last decade building an empire. At 30 years old, he stood at the top of the financial food chain, the kind of man who didn't ask for power, but took it. Reed Group was his kingdom, and he ruled with precision, cold logic, and a sharp tongue. The media loved to hate him. ruthless, unattainable, private. He dated rarely, trusted no one, and worked as if every breath depended on it. Those close to him, if there were any, knew better than to ask questions about his past. Because the truth was, Lucas Reed was haunted, not by scandals or failures, but by the ghost of a girl he had once known. A girl who smelled like summer rain and carried laughter in her eyes. Her name had been Leah. She lived in the small guest house behind his family's summer home upstate. She was 15, he was 20, and their connection had been instant. Not romantic, not yet. But it was a bond Lucas had never been able to replace. She followed him like a shadow, laughed at his terrible jokes, challenged him in chess, and made him forget the cold walls of his privileged life. That summer had ended too fast. He had gone off to college in Boston, promising to return in August. When he came back, the guest house was empty, burned. The fire had taken everything. Her family was gone. No forwarding address, no answers, only ashes. Lucas searched for months, hired a private investigator when he turned 21. All leads went cold. Over the years, he told himself to forget, to move on. But he never took off the necklace. The half of a sun he had once placed around Leah's neck was now tucked into a drawer beside his bed, untouched but never discarded. It was a relic of the only time in his life he felt real. Then there was Ava Sinclair. She had grown up believing love was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her parents had died when she was 16, the result of a highway crash that left her orphaned and alone. The system swallowed her whole, bouncing her from home to home, until she aged out at 18. By then, the world had already taught her not to trust kindness. She changed her name, buried her past, and learned how to survive. She worked hard, first as a barista, then as a bartender, then eventually as a waitress at one of the city's grittier lounges. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid for rent, heat, and food. Her one indulgence was the necklace, a gift from a boy she could barely remember, whose name had once meant safety, Jackie. He had promised to come back for her. He never did. But she wore the moon pendant still every day, because it reminded her that someone had once cared, even if it was just a memory. Celeste changed everything. Elegant, persuasive, and terrifying, Celeste had found Ava at her lowest. A customer at the lounge had recommended Ava for exclusive companionship work, and the woman who approached her after hours seemed respectable, sophisticated, and well-connected. Ava turned her down at first, but the bills stacked higher, and the hours got longer, and the world got colder. When Celeste returned a second time offering cash that could cover 3 months of rent in a single night, Ava agreed. 1 night only. No touching if she said no. Just appearance, no full service. That was the promise. Ava hated herself for accepting, but she was desperate. She didn't ask questions when Celeste's assistant gave her a hotel key and a time. She only knew it would be a powerful man, a man who wouldn't recognize her. She never expected it to be Lucas. She certainly didn't expect it to be Jackie. And she had no idea that this one mistake, this one night of misplaced hope and quiet terror, would unravel everything they thought they had lost. As she lay in that bed, pretending not to exist, Ava kept her eyes shut and prayed the man would leave. But when he gasped, when he stepped back, as if he had seen a ghost, she felt her stomach drop. She turned her head. Their eyes met, and for one flickering moment, the world shifted. The air between them thickened. Ava felt the weight of 10 years crash into her chest. She saw it in his face, too, the recognition, the disbelief. But he didn't say her name. He said nothing at all. Because he wasn't sure if it was real or if the past had come back to haunt him through the body of a stranger. Lucas didn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of the couch in the suite's living room, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows as the city lights flickered against the darkness. Ava remained in the bedroom, curled beneath the covers, too ashamed to speak, too afraid to run. He hadn't said much after that first moment. No accusations, no anger, just silence, thick and pulsing. When morning arrived, she dressed quietly and stepped into the living room. Her hands trembled as she clutched the strap of her purse. He hadn't left. He was still there. Suit jacket off sleeves rolled to his elbows. Eyes red from a night without rest. She waited for him to ask who she really was. Waited for him to shout, to throw her out, to call her what she feared she'd become. Instead, he stood, slowly walked past her, and opened the door. "You can stay," he said without looking at her. "There's another room down the hall. The suite's paid for the weekend." Ava didn't respond. She stepped past him quietly and disappeared down the hallway. That was the beginning of something neither of them understood. Lucas didn't know why he let her stay. Maybe it was guilt, maybe curiosity, maybe something deeper, older, buried beneath logic and anger. He spent the next 2 days trying to figure it out. Ava barely left the guest room. She ate, quietly showered late, and avoided eye contact. Lucas pretended to ignore her, but his mind couldn't stop spinning. She said her name was Ava Sinclair. But the necklace, the voice, the way she had whispered Jackie like it was something sacred. He started piecing it together. He remembered the way Leah had clutched his hand that last summer, the way she'd cried when he left for college, the way her house had burned a month later and no one could find her again. The resemblance was too much, too perfect, but too impossible. He needed answers. On the 3rd day, he called in a favor from a private investigator he trusted. No names, just a background check on Ava Sinclair. He didn't expect much. The report came back fast. Ava was clean, no criminal record, grew up in the system, changed homes often, no close family. But something caught his attention. One file mentioned her birth name, Leah Monroe. His hands trembled slightly as he read the line again. He remembered her mother's name, Monroe. That was it. It was her, no doubt. The girl in the guest house, the girl who vanished, the girl who had haunted him for a decade. That night he knocked on her door. She opened slowly, wearing an oversized shirt. Hair-damp eyes, tired. She looked like someone trying to disappear. He didn't speak right away, just stared. "You're Leah, aren't you?" he said softly. She flinched. Her lips parted, then closed. "How did you find out?" she whispered. He lifted his phone. "Background check. You disappeared after the fire. Why didn't you reach out?" Her eyes watered. "Because I was a kid. Because everyone said you were gone. Because I didn't know how." She stepped aside, letting him in. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, a distance both physical and emotional. "I didn't recognize you at first," she said. "I didn't know it was you until I saw your eyes. Same as before. Same as when you promised you'd come back." Lucas exhaled slowly. "I looked for you. For years. I had no idea what happened. I thought you were dead. The fire, no records. You weren't listed anywhere. I didn't know you'd changed your name." "I had to," she said. "The state took me in. They didn't want anyone with connections to a burned property and no guardian. I was just another orphan. Easier to file away if I wasn't Leah anymore. So you became Ava Sinclair. She nodded. I chose Ava because it meant life. Sinclair because I saw it on a bus stop ad. That's simple. And then last week, I ran out of money. I couldn't pay rent. That's when Celeste found me. Lucas's expression hardened. Celeste. I know her. She tried to seduce me years ago. Got angry when I turned her down. She owns the company that booked you. Ava's voice cracked. I didn't know she knew you. I didn't even know it was you. They didn't tell me who the client was, just said to be in the room. Act like I belonged there. Lucas looked away. It wasn't your fault. None of this was. I should have seen it. I should have known. He ran a hand over his face. She watched him silently. I thought about you so many times, she said. Sometimes I wasn't sure if you were real, or if I just made you up to survive. You were real, Lucas said. The most real thing I ever had. She started crying then, quietly. He reached over, hesitated, then touched her hand. They sat like that for a long time. When the sun rose, neither of them had moved. The silence between them no longer cold, but fragile. Honest. The next morning, Lucas canceled his meetings. He took Ava to brunch, ignoring the glances from paparazzi, who lurked outside the hotel. She wore sunglasses and silence, but she stayed close. That afternoon, he gave her a key to the penthouse, not as a gift, as a gesture, a chance to be somewhere safe. Ava didn't ask why. She accepted. That night, as Lucas lay in bed, he pulled open the drawer beside him. He took out the sun pendant. It still gleamed, still shined. He closed his hand around it and whispered her name. Leah, not Ava, not anymore. She was back. And everything was about to change. Lucas didn't believe in fate, but there were moments when even his logical mind couldn't deny the way certain events unraveled, as if written by something larger than himself. Leah's return was one of those moments. He hadn't expected her to stay, not after everything. But she did, quietly, tentatively. She moved into the guest room in his penthouse, unpacked nothing, and kept her clothes in the suitcase she never zipped shut. Every morning she made coffee before he woke. Every night she disappeared into her room without a word. She was like smoke, present but impossible to hold. And Lucas couldn't get her out of his head. He told himself it was because of the past, because he owed her. Because of what happened that night in the hotel room, the trap that nearly destroyed them both. But it wasn't that. It was the way she looked at the city like she didn't trust its lights. The way she laughed barely as if joy was something foreign. The way she touched her necklace when she thought he wasn't looking. It was everything. One evening, Lucas returned from a late meeting to find her sitting on the floor of the library surrounded by old photo albums he'd forgotten existed. She looked up, eyes red, a picture in her hand. You kept this, she said softly. It was an old Polaroid. A boy with a crooked smile and a girl with wild hair sitting on the edge of a wooden bridge. That was the last day, she whispered. Before the fire. He sat beside her. I never forgot. I used to dream about it. Me too. She leaned into him slightly, just enough that he could feel the tremble in her shoulders. I always wondered if you really cared. If I was just a silly kid to you. Lucas turned to her, his voice steady. You were never just a kid. I was 20, you were 15. And it scared me how much I needed to protect you. But I did care, maybe too much. I left thinking I'd come back and everything would still be there. She nodded, but it wasn't. Nothing was. The fire changed everything. I lost my parents, I lost my name, and I lost you. He didn't know what to say. He only reached out, brushing her hair from her cheek. Leah, he said for the first time in 10 years. She closed her eyes. That name felt like coming home. The next day, everything shifted. Lucas received a message from a reporter he trusted, warning him of an upcoming exposé involving leaked footage from a hotel room. His pulse tightened. He already knew. Celeste. The video showed him entering the room, Ava lying in bed. No sound, just enough to spark headlines. Lucas knew what the media would make of it. Ruthless billionaire pays for secret companion. His company would be dragged through mud. His board would demand explanations. The stock would dip. He would be painted a predator. He could survive it. He'd weathered worse, but Leah, she would be crucified. He drove home without telling her. When he entered the penthouse, she was cooking something simple. Pasta, maybe. She turned, smiled faintly. What's wrong? He hesitated, then told her everything. Her face went pale. They filmed us. How hidden camera? Probably in the lamp. Planted before we arrived. She shook her head. I didn't know, I swear. I believe you, but it's going public. I can stop it maybe, but I need time. She backed away slightly. Maybe I should leave. If I disappear, they won't care. You'll be fine. He slammed his hand on the counter. No, that's not how this works. You're not taking the blame for something you didn't do. She stared at him, hurt blooming in her eyes. Why are you fighting so hard? Because I lost you once. I'm not doing it again. That night, Lucas went to war. He contacted his legal team, his PR strategist, and his private investigator. Within 24 hours, they traced the leak back to Celeste. She had planted the camera-bribed hotel staff and forged documents to make Ava look like a high-end escort. Lucas called her directly. You made a mistake, he said. I'm not afraid of you. She laughed. You will be. He hung up without another word, but it wasn't enough. The video leaked anyway. Not the full clip, just stills. Enough to spark whispers. Twitter exploded. Headlines ran wild. Lucas Reed's secret girl. Anonymous source confirms billion-dollar scandal. Ava's face wasn't visible, but Lucas's was, clear as day. That evening, Leah paced in the guest room. I should go, she said again. This is destroying everything you built. He took her face in his hands. This, he said, is not just about the company. This is about us, you and me. They want a story. I'll give them one. The next morning, Lucas called a press conference. Cameras packed the marble hall of Reed Group's headquarters. The media expected damage control, denial, spin. Instead, Lucas stood tall, at the podium, looked into the lights, and said one sentence. The woman in that photo is Leah Monroe. She was my childhood best friend, my first love, and the only person who ever really knew me. We were separated for 10 years. We found each other again by chance. The circumstances were manipulated, but my feelings are not. I'm not ashamed of her, and I won't hide her. The room erupted. Questions flew. Who was she? Where had she been? Was it true she worked for Celeste? Lucas answered nothing further, only repeated one phrase. I chose to protect her then. I will do it again now. Back at the penthouse, Leah watched the footage through tear-blurred eyes. He didn't just defend her. He claimed her. Completely. Celeste retaliated quickly. More photos, old records, claims that Leah had been part of an underground escort ring. All lies. Lucas's legal team moved swiftly. Slander, defamation, injunctions. Celeste was arrested within a week on charges of unlawful surveillance blackmail and conspiracy to defame. But the damage had been done. the board called an emergency meeting. Lucas was advised to take a temporary step back. He agreed, not because he was defeated, but because he was tired of fighting the wrong war. He came home that night, removed his tie, and sat beside Leah on the balcony. "You're free now," he said. "No more hiding, no more running." She looked at him, eyes full of things unspoken. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Start over, with me or without me, but not alone." She reached for his hand. "You still have the necklace always." Moha pulled it from his pocket. The sun. She lifted hers. The moon. They fit together, still, even after all this time. Even after everything lost, they still belonged. A perfect pair, just like before. Lucas had never backed away from a fight, but the war against the media had left him bruised in ways he hadn't expected. The press didn't care about the truth. They wanted a headline, a scandal, a downfall. And Lucas Reed had become the perfect symbol to tear down. Despite his statement, despite the legal victories against Celeste, there were still whispers in boardrooms and on financial news outlets. Investors grew cautious, partners hesitated. The board of directors issued an ultimatum: step away for 6 months, rebuild the image, let the fire die down. Lucas agreed not out of submission, but because he had other battles to fight. Leah needed him more than the company did. They relocated to a quiet estate in Connecticut, far from Manhattan, where the trees were thick and the world was quiet enough to breathe again. The house was old with creaky floors and wide windows. Leah spent her mornings in the garden and her nights sitting beside Lucas on the porch swing watching the stars. But peace didn't erase the weight between them. One night, as crickets sang in the distance, Leah asked the question that had lived quietly in her heart for weeks. "Why didn't you come back sooner?" He didn't pretend to misunderstand. He stared into the dark, searching for the right version of the truth. "I did try," he said. "I searched for you after the fire. My PI hit dead ends. Your name didn't exist. There was no Leah Monroe. I even asked your neighbors. No one had seen you. After a while, I thought you'd died. And when I stopped believing that, I thought maybe you didn't want to be found." Her voice shook. "I waited. Every summer, I thought maybe you'd appear. Even when I was in foster care, I used to sneak out and sit by the road, hoping a car would stop and it would be you." He reached over and took her hand. "I'm sorry, I failed you." She shook her head. "No, the world failed both of us. But I need to know one thing. If that night hadn't happened, if I wasn't in that hotel room, would you still love me?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes, I never stopped. I just forgot what it felt like. Until I saw you again." She exhaled a breath that carried years of hurt. That's all I needed to hear. Their days fell into rhythm. Lucas found peace in building furniture, by hand, something he hadn't done since his teens. Leah started painting again, memories pouring out through colors and canvas. They were healing, slowly, together. Then came the letter. It arrived in a plain envelope with no return address. Inside were photographs, dozens, some of Lucas, some of Leah, all taken without consent. Park benches, balconies, shops. Someone had been watching them. A single note was clipped to the last photo. "You think it's over? It's not." Lucas's grip tightened. He recognized the threat. It wasn't Celeste. She was in jail awaiting trial. This was something else. Someone else. He called his investigator. The photos had been taken over several weeks. The camera angles suggested a drone. Sophisticated equipment. The trail led back to a shell corporation, registered to a man named Patrick Voss. Lucas's blood turned cold. Patrick Voss was Celeste's silent partner, a financier with no morals and deep connections in the underground elite. He had bankrolled Celeste's escort operation for years and blamed Lucas for the fallout. Now he wanted revenge. Lucas didn't tell Leah at first. He didn't want to shatter the calm they had built, but secrets have weight. And she felt it. One evening she confronted him. "What are you hiding?" He handed her the photos. She studied them in silence. "So it's not over." "No, it might never be." "Then we fight. Together." He smiled. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." They returned to the city the next day. Back into the fire. Lucas called a press conference again, this time with Leah at his side. He exposed Voss publicly linking him to Celeste, showing evidence of illegal surveillance and threats. The media latched on. The story shifted, from scandal to survival, from shame to strength. For the first time, Lucas wasn't just a billionaire with a reputation. He was a man who stood up for the woman he loved. And Leah, she wasn't the girl in the bed anymore. She was the voice that couldn't be silenced. As lawsuits piled up and Voss was issued a federal investigation, Lucas's company began to recover. His board offered him a quiet path back. But Lucas declined. Not yet. There was one more thing he needed to do. That weekend, he took Leah back to the place where it all began. The guest house had long since burned down, but the land remained. The wooden bridge had been rebuilt, the same one where they once sat side by side, feet dangling above the water. He led her to it. The sun was setting, casting gold across the trees. He pulled something from his pocket, the sun pendant. He joined it with hers, the moon clasping them together in his hand. Then he knelt. No ring, no speech, just him, her, and a promise long overdue. "I made you a vow once," he said. "I was 20, you were 15. I said I'd come back, that I'd marry you. I broke that promise, but I'm here now. I love you, not because of the past, but because of who you are. And I want to spend the rest of my life making it right." Her eyes filled with tears. She dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around him. "You already have." They sat on the bridge long after the sky turned black, not speaking, just holding each other. The past had broken them, but the present had chosen them again. This time they wouldn't let go. The storm had passed, and what remained was theirs, a love that never truly died, only waited to be remembered. 3 weeks after they returned to Manhattan, the city had stopped whispering about Lucas Reed. The headlines no longer chased them, and the stock market had quieted its panic. Investors had moved on to newer, fresher controversies. The media found someone else to dissect. But peace, Lucas learned, was not always permanent. It was rented, never owned. Leah had grown more confident in those weeks. She smiled more. She explored the city she once feared, often wandering into bookstores, sketching by the park, taking long walks alone in the late afternoon sun. Lucas watched her carefully, not as a man watching over someone fragile, but as someone watching something bloom. She was changing, and so was he. Then came the moment that shattered everything. It started simply with a phone call. Lucas was in his study reviewing documents from a philanthropic deal he had started in Leah's name. His phone rang. The caller ID was blocked. A voice on the other end was masked and distorted. "You think you've won. You think you're safe. But you forgot the most important thing. Voss was just a shadow. The real threat is still watching." Before Lucas could speak, the line went dead. He stood there frozen, then immediately called his security team. No new threats had been detected, no movements, nothing out of place. But something in his gut turned cold. That night he told Leah. She didn't flinch. If they want to watch, let them. We've survived worse. He admired her bravery, but deep down a chill settled in his chest. A week passed, then another. Nothing happened. Lucas started to believe it was a bluff. Until one evening Leah came home late. Her eyes were distant, her skin pale. "What happened?" he asked, concerned. She hesitated, then said, "I went to the doctor today. I wasn't feeling well. You didn't tell me. I didn't want to scare you. And I'm pregnant." Lucas stared at her, heart stalling. "You're sure?" She nodded. "I took 2 tests. The doctor confirmed." There was a long silence between them, the kind where 1,000 emotions fight for space. He reached for her, gently pulling her close. "Are you okay? I don't know. Are you mad?" "No. Never. Just surprised. Happy but scared." "Me too." They stood in the middle of the living room, holding each other. The city sparkled behind the glass, but their world had narrowed to the size of a heartbeat. The next day, Lucas doubled the security detail. He hired private medical care. Leah insisted on continuing life as normally as possible, but he watched her more closely now. They talked about names, about nurseries, about the kind of childhood they wanted to give their child. Lucas found himself smiling more often, dreaming about things he never allowed himself to hope for. Then, without warning, it all unraveled. Lucas received an anonymous email. No subject, no message, just an attachment, a video file. He opened it. The footage was grainy from a surveillance camera in a parking garage. It showed Leah being followed by a man in a black coat. The man never touched her, never approached, just watched. The video ended. Lucas sent it to his team. Within hours, they identified the location. It had been recorded 2 nights ago. The man was not recognized. Facial recognition failed. Lucas didn't tell Leah right away. He didn't want to panic her, but she found out anyway. She overheard a conversation between Lucas and the head of security. "You should have told me. I didn't want to scare you. I'm already scared, Lucas, every day, every second." She broke down that night. For the first time in weeks, she cried in his arms, her hands over her stomach. "What if they come for us? What if they come for our baby?" Lucas held her tighter. "They won't. I'll burn this city down before I let them touch you." But the fear didn't leave. It hung in the air like smoke, invisible, suffocating. The next morning, Leah was gone. Lucas found a note on the kitchen counter. "I love you. Please don't come after me. I need to disappear until this is over. It's the only way to keep you safe." Lucas read it 3 times before the words made sense. She had left, disappeared into the city without telling anyone. No phone, no tracker. He activated every resource, private investigators, tech teams, even his old government contacts. Nothing. Days passed, then a week. He barely slept, barely ate. Every time the phone rang, he hoped it was her. And every time it wasn't, his heart cracked a little more. One morning, he found himself standing on the old bridge upstate, the place where he had proposed, where he had promised never to lose her again. And yet, here he was, alone, broken. When he returned to the city, there was a package waiting for him. No return address. Inside a single ultrasound photo, at the bottom written in her handwriting, "She's real, she's safe." Lucas clutched the photo like a lifeline. He didn't cry, he didn't scream, he simply made a vow. "I will find you, I will find both of you, whatever it takes." Months passed. And then one day, as autumn turned the city gold, his investigator called. They found her, a small coastal town in Maine, working under an alias, using a local clinic. Lucas didn't wait. He boarded a plane that night. When he arrived, it was raining. The streets were quiet. He found her in a bookstore sorting children's books on a low shelf. Her belly had grown, her hair longer. When she saw him, she froze. "I told you not to come, and I told you I wouldn't lose you again." He crossed the room and took her hands. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to bring you home." She searched his face. "Do you still want this? After everything, more than anything," she cried then. Not from fear, but from relief. They sat together in that bookstore until the rain stopped, talking about names again, about cribs and lullabies, about new beginnings. Lucas knew the danger might never fully go away, that shadows would always chase the powerful. But he also knew this: he had found her twice in one lifetime, and he would spend the rest of his life protecting that miracle. Leah took his hand. "I want to come home." "Then let's go. Together. Always." They left the bookstore in silence, hearts full of things too deep for words. And for the first time in months, the world felt safe again. The sun filtered through the tall windows of the Reed estate, casting warm light over polished wood floors and soft ivory curtains. In the nursery upstairs, soft music played from a vintage record player. The walls were painted a gentle sky blue, adorned with hand-drawn constellations and framed sketches Leah had drawn herself. A crib sat in the center of the room, and inside it, wrapped in a soft blanket, was a baby girl with Lucas's eyes and Leah's mouth. Her name was Alara, a name chosen for the stars and for the hope that had carried them through the dark. Downstairs, Lucas stood in the kitchen, feeding Leah spoonfuls of lemon sorbet, as she laughed, half embarrassed, half delighted. He had made it from scratch, a skill he picked up during the months they spent away from the city, hidden in the quiet coastal town where she had found herself again. They had returned only after Alara was born, stronger than ever, bonded not only by love, but by survival. The world had changed since then. The trial against Patrick Voss had ended in a guilty verdict. His empire dismantled, his name erased from the industry. Celeste had accepted a deal, trading her silence for a reduced sentence, but the damage she caused had already been undone by truth and time. The Reed Group had welcomed Lucas back without hesitation, but he no longer ruled with cold logic and ambition. Now he led with balance, with purpose, with something deeper than power. Leah had become a quiet force in the company's philanthropic arm, advocating for women pulled into systems of exploitation, building shelters, and funding education programs under the name the Alara Foundation. Together they had transformed pain into purpose, shame into strength. One evening they stood on the balcony of their Manhattan penthouse, the city lights twinkling like a sea of fireflies. Lucas held Leah from behind his chin, resting on her shoulder, as they watched Alara sleep through the baby monitor. "Remember when I first found you in that hotel room?" he said softly. She smiled. "I thought it was the end of my life, and it turned out to be the beginning of ours." He kissed the top of her head. "You saved me, not just once, but every day after. You saved me first," she whispered, "when I was 15 and broken and believed no one would ever stay. You did, and I never forgot." Lucas reached into his pocket and pulled out the joined pendants, the sun and moon, now fused into a single chain. He fastened it around her neck gently. "It belongs here," he said, "with you." She touched the pendants, her fingers lingering over the metal. A symbol, a promise, a piece of their past that had survived everything. Lucas turned her gently to face him. "You know," he said, "I still can't believe I walked into that room expecting silence and found you instead. I can't believe I was the one lying there waiting and never knew it was you." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "Maybe we were always meant to meet that way. Maybe the universe had to break us to bring us back whole." He nodded, "And now we're unbreakable." They kissed beneath the stars, the city alive around them, and in that moment everything felt exactly as it was meant to be. Not perfect, but real. The kind of love that isn't just remembered, but rebuilt, survived, forgiven, lived. Because sometimes the people we lose come back when we least expect them, not as ghosts of who they were, but as reminders of who we've always been. And when they do, we hold them tighter, because we've learned the truth. Real love doesn't fade, it waits, even in the dark. Especially in the dark.